Three developer releases landed the same day: Kimi AI and KV Cache AI open-sourced AgentENV. AgentENV runs Firecracker sandboxes for Kimi K3. Kimi K3 is a 2.8 trillion parameter mixture of experts model. Perplexity released pplx, a single binary CLS for search, and Marktechpost published a tutorial reproducing Anthropic's SkillAgent workflow in Python. AgentENV is open source under the MIT license. It runs Firecracker microVM sandboxes for agentic reinforcement learning. The project is used to power training of Kimi K3. AgentENV exposes snapshot storage and an E2B-compatible HTTP API. AgentENV runs Firecracker microVMs. Each sandbox has its own Linux kernel and network namespace. Storage uses a UBLK user space block device backed by overlay BD layered images. Read-only base layers are shared, and each sandbox writes to a separate upper layer. An ingest daemon called NVD handles commands and reports health on port 49983. AgentENV reports snapshot-backed environments boot or resume in under 50 milliseconds. Pause takes under 100 milliseconds. Incremental snapshot capture completes in under 100 milliseconds, even under heavy disk change. A running sandbox can fork into up to 16 child sandboxes on the same node. This lets setup run once and branch into parallel rollouts. For agentic-ai, the trade-off is isolation versus speed. MicroVMs provide stronger isolation than containers. Snapshots and fork reduce repeated setup cost across rollouts. Snapshots persist to S3-compatible storage or a shared file system. AgentENV supports POSIXFS and an OSS backend that needs an explicit region. Server prerequisites include Linux kernel 6.8 or newer and /dev KVM access. The install script targets Ubuntu 24.04. Perplexity released pplx, a single binary CLI. It exposes two commands, pplx search web and pplx content fetch. On success, it writes one JSON object to steadout and exits 0. On failure, it exits 1 and writes a JSON error object to steaderror. The installer pins a release tag using manifest.json, verifies SHA-256 sums, and installs to /localbin pplx. A receipt is written to /config/pplx-receipt.json after a successful run. Pplx returns grounded search hits and page text as JSON. It is not a chat client and does not synthesize answers. Use -output dir to save full JSON files and -stoutout preview to truncate long fields when you also save. pplx output dir sets a default workspace. Supported platforms are macOS on Apple Silicon, Linux x86-64, and Linux ARM64. There is no Windows build and no Intel macOS build. The tutorial reproduces Anthropic's skill-driven architecture in Python. It parses skill.md files into a searchable registry. The SkillAgent injects selected playbooks into the Claude Messages API. A Python execution tool provides a persistent namespace across turns. The demo builds a 5-year unlevered cash flow DCF, generates a WACC and terminal growth sensitivity heat map, exports a multi-sheet Excel workbook, and drafts an investment memo inside Colab. These tools can form a practical agent stack. AgentENV supplies isolated fast sandboxes for agent actions and training rollouts. SkillAgent patterns orchestrate tool use, persistent calculation, and deliverables. pplx provides a simple retrieval surface for grounding. A fintech team could run Claude SkillAgents that execute Python inside AgentENV, persist snapshots to S3, and use pplx or MCP connectors for market data before exporting Excel deliverables and memos. Limitations are practical and operational. AgentENV server is Linux only and requires KVM and Linux kernel 6.8 or newer. P2P artifact transport is optional and disabled by default. For shared storage, the docs ask for at least 1 Gbps and strongly recommend 10 Gbps. Perplexity's pplx has no Windows build and does not synthesize final answers. The Anthropic tutorial uses Colab and synthetic data, production requires licensed data connectors and governance. If you build agents, these releases matter across layers. AgentENV handles isolated fast runtimes at training scale. The SkillAgent tutorial shows tool orchestration and persistent execution. PPLX provides grounded retrieval as JSON. Operational requirements like KVM, network bandwidth, and licensed data connectors remain gating factors. You'll find the sources in the description. Primary references include the AgentENV repo, the Anthropic tutorial reproduction, and Perplexity's PPLX documentation.